I
There we
figured
go.
it out. All right.
Guess we can start. Welcome,
Okay.
everybody, to Synchronous Learning with Digital Marketing. My name is Vidal Fonesca. I'm the course director for Digital Design Usability, as well as Project Portfolio 4 and 5. Today's session, we have Holly Picano, who is a digital marketing pro, who has been in the trenches running my fault, I'm moving stuff around. 500 Fortune ad campaigns at top agencies. With a master's of science in digital marketing and a knack for AI, she knows how to turn data and AI tools into marketing magic, from SEO to PPC and social media. Holly got the skills to level up any campaign, and she's here to share some of the information with a Q&A session that we created together. Let's
Yeah.
begin. Hey,
Thanks
Holly.
for having me. Thanks for having me. And I'm a little sick, so I might sound a little off, but I hope I don't sound too bad.
So, Holly, could you give me a brief introduction of what you do and how you do
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So I'm an artist first, right? So way back, if we rewind till I was like my daughter's age, 19, my parents dropped me off at the Art Institute in Fort Lauderdale. And that was my first stab at so that was I was getting an ad design degree there. And it was funny because back then I had one computer class for ad design, which is mind-blowing now because you think now it's going to be all computer classes, right?
Yeah,
But back then we did everything by hand. We did, hot press, cold press boards, and you would have to, I don't even remember what you call it, but you'd have to use the X-Acto and peel away the film. And we're just in a different world now. But that was my first stab at advertising design in the art world. And then fast forward a bit, and then I ended up working at Disney, which my dream job was working in the art department at Disney. That was my dream. However, I never got there, but I ended up working at Disney, total opposite end of the spectrum. I ended up in finance, but it was financial planning. So it was really interesting because I got a chance to work on the annual operating plan and the 5-year planning for the entire company. So I worked with analysts. And even though that's not very creative, I got to see the creativity come to life. And that was really, really cool. And then I got a chance because of where I was at Disney. I had a chance to go meet with, wasn't with us any longer, but at the time, he was the last living cast member that was actually hired by Walt Disney himself. It was a really, really cool experience. So anything Mickey Mouse related had to go through him first before it went on a clock, a watch, a t-shirt, sweater, whatever. So I got a chance to job shadow with him and his team, and that was really amazing. And then so I would do that during the day, and then at night in the evenings, I would be an artist at Cafe Two to Tango. If we have any local people, they might know of Two to Tango on iDrive. But basically a restaurant where you're entertained by, while you're eating, you're entertained by artists and dancers. So I got a chance to paint while I was there. And it's interesting because at the time, and I was in my 20s, and at the time, I got over my fear of painting in front of audiences because at first I was like, wow, this is scary. Like I'm really gonna have to think about what my creative what's my art piece gonna be? What do I don't want to just start painting in front of people. How's it gonna end up? So I started thinking along the lines of, well, I'm gonna have to plan my art out so I don't get into a situation where I'm in a 4-hour shift and halfway through it's not coming out the way I expected. So I started using things I learned in art school, which were using a projector. Come from the school of you don't do that, but when you have to plan something out, it's really your friend. So I would use my projector, I would pencil everything in on canvas first. Then I would get to Cafe Two to Tango, and then I would start to paint. I knew what I was going to paint and I planned it out, so I felt much better about it. But I did that for years, painting at Two to Tango. And then I came across this really cool opportunity. I have a family friend, his name's Dan, and he knows that I was painting a lot of images of Marilyn Monroe. And he went out to California because he has a lot of family out there in Sherman Oaks, California. And funny enough, he was getting a massage, and in the massage place, they're divided up by curtains. So there was somebody on the other side of the curtain, and he heard her talk about Marilyn Monroe and how her family was good friends with Marilyn and Joe DiMaggio when they were married. And so then they started this conversation because Dan went right into, hey, my niece paints images of Marilyn Monroe. I should get the two of you together, which he did. And that was a really amazing experience because her name was Dolores, but she had images of Marilyn that Marilyn had left to her, clothing, photographs, things like that. So she had given me some of these, not to keep, but to draw from, photographs, original photographs of Marilyn that were left to her. And then actually, if you can see this one with the green background, that came from one of her photos, and that's one that I did. And they flew me out to Vegas, and I got to present right next to Tony Curtis, who, if anybody's old enough in the audience to know who Tony Curtis is, played alongside Marilyn in Some Like It Hot. And I didn't realize he was an artist also. So it was pretty cool. He would take montages. So we'd take all these images of Marilyn and put them onto one canvas. And so I got to present my art next to his. And that was definitely one for the books. Full
Very
experience.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, leading into our topic today with generative AI, creative design often requires a human touch. How do you use generative AI to fit the process of what you create visually, as
Yeah.
well
So
as anything else?
yeah, so it's funny because with DALL-E, well, I'll use DALL-E for example, because I use DALL-E a lot. There's a lot of different tools out there, but I use that one a lot. But if you and I had the same prompt, right? Or if, let's say five of us have the same prompt and we enter it in DALL-E 3, we're using the same technology, we're using the same prompt, it's gonna come out a little bit different, but you're gonna look at it and think that looks like AI. 9 times out of 10, somebody's gonna say that looks like AI. The way to get around that is you can train it. And it's just like being an artist, a traditional artist, finding your own style. So with DALL-E 3, it would be the same way. If I just want to, if I want to train it to just use certain colors, use a certain style, you can do that and build on it. And when you do that, and I don't know how many people in the audience have experience using DALL-E 3, but you'll have to the left, it'll show what you've been working on the left side. And what I like to do is if there's a certain style or a certain thing that I want to work on, I put do not delete in big letters, followed by the whatever I call it, and then I'll just keep working that style right in that in the same prompt area. And DALL-E 3 is cool that way because it has the memory. So you can just build on it. And that is a cool thing about DALL-E 3.
Kind of like the layers, the Photoshop layers have the layer.
Yeah, yeah. And not all the AI tools are like that. Like Midjourney, for example, it'll blow your mind when it comes to realism, but it doesn't have a memory like DALL-E 3 does. So for example, I can't say create a fox walking through the forest in Midjourney and then come back and say, now make him run or now do this or that. It doesn't build on that. And Midjourney is a little bit different that way too, because you need to know styles and codes, which in DALL-E 3, it's much more conversational. So I can talk to it like I'm talking to you right now and just say, create a fox walking through the woods. And then I can start adding to that. And it has a memory. So I can say, well, now, add such and such lighting and camera angles, and I can build on that without having to repeat the entire prompt over again.
So it kind of keeps the features of the lighting, the different styles you chose prior to.
Yeah. And then you
you-
can just build on it. Now it's not always going to do that. And sometimes it has its own mind. And that's what's cool about generative AI, but also what's kind of, the downside also. So sometimes you might lose some of those things. Like if I start building on it and I want certain lighting and now I want to use a certain angle, sometimes it might lose the whatever that piece of prompt was before, but from the most part, it will remember it.
Very cool. I have a question here. Some people worry that AI might take over creative jobs. How do you reassure us marketers and designers about working alongside AI or generative AI?
Well, I would definitely say think about it as a partner, not a replacement. Definitely. Because it's here, some people are scared of it. But I would say just get to know it and know it better than anybody else in your field or anybody that you know. And that's kind of job security right now.
Yeah, it's kind of getting used to the process itself. Like
Yeah.
one of the key features I tell my students is just try to get assimilated to it. Like even try and chat GPT to make a workout of the day or food for the day and get just start
Right.
our simple prompting those generative, chat GPT just to get used to what's out there and what you're able to
Yeah.
use.
And if you are just getting used to it, I would definitely say OpenAI, ChatGPT, because OpenAI, which is the parent company to ChatGPT and DALL-E 3, I like that platform for so many reasons. One being that you can go there for a text to text generation, just like ChatGPT, or the text to image, which is DALL-E 3, and you can do both of those things on one platform, which is great. So you're not like toggling between, two different platforms. You're doing it all in one platform. So I love it for that. That's great.
That's very cool. Well,
Yeah.
that leads into my question. Can you share with us any tools you use on a regular basis that have become essential to your workflow?
Yeah, it's definitely that. Definitely ChatGPT and DALL-E 3. And you can use that for digital marketing too. So when you're creating, like I used to work at some digital ad agencies, and a lot of times the clients will provide you with, the creative and the copy, but there is going to be times that they don't and they want you to create it. And it's great. It's a great tool for that too. You can brainstorm with it. You can tell it, um, I need a headline for my Google ad and it can't be any more than X amount of characters. So you can use it for headlines, for copy, and then you can do your creative right there too. So definitely, OpenAI is definitely one of my big
Pretty much like, yeah, OpenAI, and for me it's
ones.
ChatGPT because I
You can
have
also, if you want to, yeah,
no, I'm
and
sorry, I got
and
kind
what's that?
of my mic was giving me issues. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can also use DALL-E 3 technology in Bing. So when I first started using DALL-E, it was DALL-E 2, and now it's graduated to DALL-E 3. But Microsoft put a lot of funding into that, and then you'd start seeing, okay, now you can get it on Bing also. So you can go to Bing and play around with it there too for free, same technology. And here's a tip because a lot of times and I don't want to tell you what the limit is because it changes all the time. But if you're on the OpenAI platform and you're creating images in DALL-E 3, you get to a point where it'll say, you're generating images too quickly, give it 3 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it tells you at the time. So now, if you're on a roll, it just stopped you, right? So what you can do is open up another tab in your browser and go to Bing and start using DALL-E 3 there until you hit your limit. And then you can go back and forth until, until you exhaust both of them.
Oh,
But yeah, I've had to do that plenty of times.
oh. There's a question. What are the potential pitfalls of using generative AI in marketing, and how can students you know, avoid them while still trying to stay creative as well as ethical?
It was you
Did
froze
it
up
break
for a
up?
minute. What,
Yeah. All right. What
yeah.
are the potential pitfalls of using generative AI in marketing? And how can students avoid them while staying creative and ethical?
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting because like a year and a half ago, you could do almost anything in DALL-E. I could say, and I know I mentioned this to you the other day, it was bizarre because you could say, create, some art form. I could say, create this cat with a fishbowl in Banksy style, and it would actually do it. And I couldn't believe it. And I saved all those images because I was like, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this forever. So I saved them and I still have them, but you can't do that today because it's they've trained the system out of that. Any living artist, you can't reproduce their work, or you're not supposed to be able to use their likeness. But if you don't want them to use your likeness, you can also go onto their site. Now, this is something a lot of people ask about, and they don't know because they don't make it really obvious. But if you're a living artist, you can go onto their site and you have to dig deep to find it. But there's a form that you can fill out that says, I don't want my artwork to be used at all in the system. So that's just like an extra step you have to do. But if you don't want it to be used, I would do that. Because they started having lawsuits with OpenAI, and there was actually, I think I mentioned this
Yeah.
to you the other day. There were three artists, one definitely was in New York. I don't know if the other two were, uh, but they actually sued OpenAI for using their likeness, the likeness of their work, and they actually won, which blew my mind because here you have like three little artists like myself up against this huge company, and these artists actually won. But then, so after several lawsuits, we saw a lot of changes in the engineering of DALL-E 3. And so now it'll kind of save you from yourself, I guess. It'll catch you from doing those things now.
And I think you mentioned yeah, during this past week the story about you search for yourself.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. So I thought, okay, so if this is true, this means I'm an artist and there's plenty of my artwork out on the internet. So if you Google Holly Picano, you'll see tons of my artwork. So I thought, well, by that rationale, that means if I ask DALL-E 3 to create artwork in the style of Holly Picano, artist Holly Picano, then it won't do that because I'm still alive and it knows that. So I tested it and I said, my prompt was similar to this: create a woman's face in different colors in the style of Holly Pagano. And I hit enter, and it created some really cool artwork. And so it did what it said it wasn't going to do. And then it even told me, it recognized what it did. It said, here are the pieces inspired by artist Holly Pagano. So I thought that was pretty interesting. They said you can't do that, but you can do that.
Yeah, and trying to share some of the creatives they've worked on. So let me do a little screen share here.
Oh, okay.
Let's open this. 1 second, please, guys.
Yeah.
Which actually can lead into this question. What is the coolest and most unexpected things you've seen in generative AI? As I'm trying to open the file here.
Well, while we're still working on that, this piece, well, hold on. This piece, I'm mirroring here, so it's hard. Here is you can actually use the style of Vincent van Gogh because you can use, if the artist has been dead plus 70 years, you can use them because they're in the public domain. And so you can actually create in the style of some of these artists.
Very cool.
Oh, okay, I see it. We can see it now. So yeah, with DALL-E. Yeah, so these pieces that you're showing right now, um, I can run through. Do you want me to run through some of those and like how I created them?
That works.
Okay. So I can,
I'm trying to get comfortable here.
oh, you know what? It says I can't share my
Oh,
screen now.
here we go. I got you. Let's get in here. I'm gonna need to change you into host. There we go.
All right, let's see. Continue. I'm just going to share the whole thing here and see if this works. Let's see. Okay, so you can see my screen now.
Yes.
You see a giant flower?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So this is something I created just to walk people through camera lenses. So You might already know this, but you can, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but you can go through OpenAI, which I happen to love and am addicted to, or you can go through Bing, which is great too. But like I said before, if you go to OpenAI, you can have that both the chat GPT and the text to image. So that's why I live there most of the time. So I'll walk you through the prompt here. I kept them very short and simple just because the lesson is about lenses. So I wanted to keep it very simple. So basically, I put in this prompt is create a purple orchid in a rainforest. And this is what it generated. Very, very basic. Oh, and this is just a footnote. DALL-E 3 is more artistic than technically precise, like Midjourney. So if you want something that looks more realistic, at the end of your prompt, you can just put a comma and put natural or natural looking. And it will give you something a little more natural looking. And I think the Vivid is fun, but if you do want more natural looking, you can just do that through the prompt. So here I said same prompt, but I said zoom lens. So create a purple orchid in a rainforest, comma, zoom lens. So this gives you a nice zoomed in look. Different lenses that you can just have fun with, like the zoom, the wide angle. When I first started experimenting with DALL-E, you would have to put wide angle in your prompt. You don't anymore because they give you an option of basically you click a button right next to it if you want if you want a landscape versus a portrait. In the beginning, it wasn't that easy. You had to put it in your prompt. You can mess around with the telephoto, the macro, which I can show you here later. The fisheye, I can show you an example of that too. Pinhole gives you that kind of vignette where it's like dark around the image. And the tilt shift, not all the time, but most of the time, it gives you kind of a miniature effects. And I have an example of that too. And then portrait. And then I get into definitions here. I won't bore you with all of those. But let's see here. Okay. So here, if you use zoom lens, golden hour. So what I did was I used the lens, which is zoom, and then I used a lighting technique. And for anybody that's into photography, you might already know that, but it's the hour before the sun sets or the sun rises, right after the sun rises or right before the sun sets. It gives you that nice glow, that warm glow. And then this one, I said wide angle lens. So you'll see it gave me a long, and now like I said before, all you have to do is push a button now, but you used to have to put it into your prompt. And then this is macro. So create a purple orchid and a rainforest macro lens. So it gives you that super, super duper close up there. And this is the fisheye lens, what that looks like. So it's just kind of creative fun. And the pinhole lens, like we were talking about, it gives you that dark vignette around it. And then this is the tilt shift, like it's all these tiny little miniatures around this big orchid. You have the fox, some fairies, and a little house here. So that's what you usually get with the tilt shift lens and the portrait lens. So now this is interesting. I wanted to show people the difference between the vivid and the natural. So DALL-E 3 by default is going to show you vivid. So it's going to be really bright, which is what we see here. Now, if you want a more natural look, it just kind of it takes out that super vibrant look and it just dulls that. You can really see the difference here, right?
Yep, big time.
Yeah. So, and then here I kind of put everything together, the subject, the lighting, the camera lens, and the natural look to show this.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's what the lens is. Now the lighting is really a lot of fun too. I'll go through this with you. That's the same. Okay, so if we get into this, like create a fox in the wilderness, it comes up with this, and you'll see it's vivid because that's the default. Now this, I decided to use overcast, so create a fox in the wilderness, overcast lighting. And this is what we come up with here. And then this is just a list of different things you can try. The midday, the blue hour, which is that twilight. So it's got that blue hue. The golden hour, which is one of my personal favorites. The overcast, which is the diffuse light, backlighting, silhouette, warm, cold, high key. Now, the cold and the high key, you'll see when I show you images, they look very similar, but the difference between the two is the cold will have the bluish tones and the high key doesn't. Then you can use studio lighting or direction lighting, which I did on the cover. And so here we'll go through some of the examples. So this is midday, the golden hour, my personal favorite. And here at nighttime, which is pretty cool. Now, this piece, I didn't have it readily available or I'd show it to you, but I was experimenting and having a lot of fun with this. I put it together with another AI tool where I could animate it. And so what I wanted to do is I just wanted that would be really cool to kind of bring to life the fire. But sometimes it has hallucinations, and the fox actually went into the fire and disappeared. So it didn't work out as planned, but it was pretty cool. So here's the backlighting. And then here you'll see that in the high key. So you see how you've got some blue hues here in that lighting, and here it's just stark white. So that's the biggest difference there. And then you can use silhouette, warm lighting for indoors, studio lighting, the 20th Century Fox. Having fun with that one. Create an extreme close-up of a fox directional lighting across the eyes. And this is the one I use for the cover. So it gives you a nice dramatic look. And let's see here. It really stands, it's so vivid. And then here I put natural after the prompt, so you can see that, it really tones it down a bit. And then the final formula, we put the subject, the lighting, and the natural look together, and you get something like this. So those are the different things you can do with the lighting. That's just a lot of fun. It really brings it to life. And then I have one more thing to show you as far as the different styles. Do you want me to get right into it?
We get right into it.
Okay, cool.
I'm like
So,
smiling. I'm like, this is cool.
okay. So this with the art styles, I stuck with a corgi most of the time because I think just using the same thing, you'll see the differences more. So we're going to go through some drawing styles, paintings, art movements. So here I said, create a blue tick hound pencil sketch. And then it comes up with this, which is just blows your mind, right? It's amazing. So something like this, when I was attending the Art Institute and I would sit at my table, this is what I would do at night. I'd get home and I would, make myself something to eat and I'd be watching Seinfeld and I'd be on my drawing table. And if I did something like this, like 4 hours a day to get something like this precise and this amazing, so it just blows your mind that you can do something like this in a matter of minutes, where it used to take hours. Here I'm showing you color pen and charcoal, and this is a friend of mine's dog. Moochie. So create a dachshund sitting on a pillow wearing a crown, line art. And here's pastels, which looks very similar to the color pencils, but the pastels have a more chalky look to them. And let's see. Oh, and here, so I wanted to show you through some art movements that I thought were really cool. So Art Nouveau style and the pop art style, which I used for the cover, and comic book style, which is really fun. Baroque. So you see, you can just do all these different art styles. It's so much fun. Impressionistic. Low poly is really cool. It's just a makeup of like different shapes put together. And I can't remember what colors it did originally, but I wanted it to do it in purple, green, and gold. So I just specified. And surreal, more like a DALL-E painting, which I don't know if you know this, how DALL-E 3 got its name. Do you know?
No.
Okay, so DALL-E 3 is kind of fun. So DALL-E 3, they named it this because DALL-E, the surreal artist, and Wall-E, the Disney Pixar robot. Do you remember that movie?
Yep. Wally.
No. So it was technology, right? So it's taking that technology and the surreal artist and putting it together, and that's where they got DALL-E.
Very cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So here I just show a bunch of different painting styles that you can try, drawing and painting, that anybody can try and just work with. And here, I love English Bulldog. Create a colorful English bulldog riding a skateboard, low angle, thick oil paint. So angles are a big deal too. So using low angle, high angle. So think about that when you do your prompting too. So that is what I wanted to show you there. What? While we're here, if you don't mind me showing you this,
Don't mind.
this is what okay, this is what I was telling you about that I just thought it would be really super cool if I could put myself into one of my AI creations. This photographer, his name's Eric Cuccioni, which sounds Italian, but it's really French. But I've wanted to work with him for 15 years and I've never had a really good reason until now. And so I called him up and I said, hey, you want to do this with me? And he's like, yeah, I think that'd be really cool. So we got together at the back lot at Full Sail. And so that's what you see here. And I ordered this. This is what I did first. I did this AI piece of the umbrellas here. And I thought it would be really cool just to insert myself right into that painting. So I got this red umbrella on Amazon. It got here like the next day. And then I got a gallon of paint and we got a ladder and we set up backlot at Full Sail. And so you can't see, but right outside of this picture, my husband is on a ladder with a gallon of paint, getting ready to pour it over my umbrella. So, and we knew we had just a matter of like seconds to get this right because once the paint bucket, that's it. So he started shooting. We poured the paint over. I ruined my shirt, but it was worth it. But the funny thing is that we decided it was the best photo out of all of them. So we didn't actually use a photo with the paint on the umbrella, but that was okay because Eric, the photographer, went ahead and photoshopped these drips into this piece, right? That's what he did first. Then he went ahead and superimposed me onto this, so you can see here. And then he just finished it off in Photoshop. Isn't that cool?
That's pretty cool.
That was just like one of the most fun projects.
Wow, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, okay, I'll stop sharing there.
Well, I have one last question before I open the session to the students to ask at least a couple of questions. What
Yeah.
is the coolest project you've worked on?
Well, yeah, that was definitely one of
That
them.
was one.
And then the other one was definitely my book. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you why that was so cool. So this is what happened. I was in an AI panel and I was on stage and I was showing my book. It's called ChatGPT and it's how this came about is my brother's like, have you heard of ChatGPT? And this is a couple years ago now. And I was like, well, think I saw it a couple of times, like in an email or on the news or something. He's like, well, you should check it out. You need to be in this, right? So I started checking it out and I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a book about ChatGPT with ChatGPT. So that's what I did. And I did it in the tone of Jerry Seinfeld and it let me. And so it's pretty funny. So anyway, I'm on stage and I'm with this book like this. And it was on LinkedIn Live. A publisher saw me and reached out to me and said, "We want you to write a book about DALL-E." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not going to say no to that. That sounds like fun." So at the time it was DALL-E 2, right? DALL-E 3 hasn't even come out yet. It's DALL-E 2, totally different. Microsoft, I don't think had even started funding them yet. So it was just like this little program. It was kind of clunky, but it was fun. So I started working on this and working with experiments constantly because if you think about it, it was so new that I couldn't go to YouTube video on how to do this. Show me a video or show, I couldn't look up any tutorials, nothing. And the company's website had, I think, 2 or 3 experiments that they did themselves, and that was it. There was no like how to. So I spent over 2,400 hours experimenting with DALL-E. It started DALL-E 2. So I started writing the book alongside my editor who was in a different country, but we were able to do like what we're doing right now, which was great. And so I'm moving along, and then I'm getting like 2 or 3 chapters in, and then guess what happens? Like Microsoft starts funding OpenAI, and then they start making changes to the platform. Now it went from DALL-E 2 to DALL-E 3, which means it actually looks different in the platform. So when I'm trying to walk people through it in the book, the visuals are different. So I have to go back and shoot different visuals, and then I have to rewrite because now it's starting to change. So I get 3 chapters into it, and then they start changing it again. In that time, like there were 6 months from like summer to winter last year where there were so many major changes to it. I actually had to keep going back from the very beginning of the book and starting over again. But it was an interesting time. But this is funny. So I'm going to show you. It looked like this. And I said to the publisher, I was like, that's a really boring cover because I did some really cool art and we're going to show a cover like this. I was like, can we reconsider that? So they were really cool about it. And we went back and decided to use this, which is a whole lot more fun, right? So I got to use one of the images where it shows like where I used lighting techniques and timing and all that. So it came out a lot cooler. But that was definitely a really cool project.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to open the session to students. Some questions out there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to, I call it unleash the mics, so you guys can open up your mics or raise your
Unleash
hand
Thanks.
or type into the chat. Any questions, guys?
Don't give me any legal ones. I know a lot of people ask about the whole, the copyright, the IP stuff. And again, when it comes to visual arts, it's like the lifetime of the artist plus 70 years after their death. Then you can use their likeness.
Yes, there are any questions.
All
I'm
right. Well, you
trying
know
to
what? If
Karen,
anybody,
Karen has one.
okay.
I
Oh,
didn't have anything. I just was trying to mute it back because you hear a lot of noise from my apartment from
oh,
outside.
Awesome.
okay. Well, if anybody does think of any questions later, feel free, just reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn. I also have a cheat sheet, a DALL-E 3 cheat sheet. So if
Might be interested in the cheat
anybody
sheet.
wants, you know what I'll do? When we hang and say, what's that?
I might be interested in the cheat sheet.
Okay, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll post something on LinkedIn. I'll say, if anybody was in this session, if you want a cheat sheet, just, say so in the comments, and then I'll just DM you one right on LinkedIn.
There you go.
Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you,
Okay.
Holly, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to at least be the guest speaker for our synchronous learning for today.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks for having me.
and
It was a lot of fun.
hopefully you guys have a great break soon, holiday break, and you as well, Holly. And thanks for joining.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Bye.